What's going on, guys? I'm back with another one. I got a brand spanking new suggestion box review for you guys. Yes, I just finished watching a movie called The Wailing, starring Kwak Do-won, Kim Hwan-hee, and Jun Kunomuro. And I'll never say those names ever again. First of all, of course, I'm giving a shout out to Cheryl Burton. She brought me another one, and I highly appreciate it. I went ahead and I gave it a try. I'm about to get into that right now. Subtitles in movies. I'm not a big fan of them. I think I've mentioned this before, or maybe I haven't. But I'm really not a big fan of subtitles in my movies or in my animes. Alright. Yeah, I'm one of those anime watchers. Okay? I need the English dub. I think the only movies with subtitles that I've reviewed so far have been Enter the Fat Dragon and Train to Busan. Other than that, you're rarely going to see events like this. Even though I have a good mind to watch Journey to the West and As the Gods Will. And I'm guaranteeing you, one of those is what the F material. Absolute what the F material. Trust me. But now we have The Wailing, which has been presented to me. So my thing is, whenever, at any time, you see me review a subtitled movie, it's more than likely going to be a Japanese or Chinese movie, because when it comes to foreign movies, they have the best. They are very creative, extremely creative. Their imaginations go above and beyond. Okay, and I appreciate them for that. And that's probably the only reason that I would ever consider a subtitle movie. It's got to be Japanese or Chinese made. I am sorry. Maybe I'm not sorry. But let's get into the review, shall we? The Wailing. For those who don't know, for those who are not aware, I think a lot of people are aware of this. It came out in 2016. So if you're in movies like this already, then you know what's up. You absolutely know what's up with this one. Okay? So let's get into this. The Wailing is about a cop in Korea named Kong-gu. I probably messed his name up so much, but it'll be at the bottom of the screen if I got it wrong. And he's investigating a situation where as a stranger from Japan came into town, into South Korean town, and as soon as this guy came in, weird events started happening. People started to get sick, or, for the better way of using that word, they became possessed. Okay, they became possessed and started doing crazy things, fires, murders, all types of just wild situations happening, wild events. And so people all had their suspicion that it had to do with the guy who just came into town, the so-called stranger, right? And the cop has to investigate all of these happenings. And I don't think he really takes into consideration how deep, serious this is until his daughter, Hayo Gin, or if I got that name wrong, I messed it up. It's going to be at the bottom of the screen too. These names. until she becomes possessed. Oh, then that's when things get personal. That's when they absolutely get personal. And that is the premise of the movie. Positives. This movie has a lot of unintentional humor to it. A lot of unintended. All right. Areas where I laugh, but I don't think I was supposed to laugh. Okay? And maybe those were intended. They might have been intended to be funny. But it just felt like they were not. It felt like they really were trying to pull your emotions and get to a serious point. But they just kept on throwing the humor left and right. But I appreciated that. I chuckled at a lot of those scenes, especially the little sex scene and the stuff they were talking about in their sex scene. That was unexpected. Okay, I don't usually, when I watch these Japanese movies, I don't usually see like a sex scene in one of those. Gore, yeah, but not a straight up sex scene with some jokes thrown in right after the sex scene. Okay, so that was interesting. Another thing that got me with this movie, the possession of the little girl. The part or the moment when things got real. Okay, that is when things got real. Even though other people were going through this with this possession pandemic, they use that word, but they were going through this whole thing with the possession through the whole town. And the cop really didn't feel it until his daughter got her soul taken advantage of. All right. And the daughter, the thing with that, it reminds me of a Japanese version of The Exorcist, because I can't remember how the girl in Exorcist was before the exorcism or the possession, but the daughter in this movie was just the sweetest little girl. Loved her dad, got along with her dad very well. You know, daddy's little girl. Then as soon as she gets possessed, she starts cussing this man out, eating like a 300-pound sailor, like a beast, okay, and hurting people, okay? And it was such a tragic or drastic change in personality that you can't help but notice. You cannot help but notice that. All right? And that was immensely crazy for me. All right. Something I couldn't ignore. I couldn't ignore that part. It was too much. It was too much. One more thing that I truly enjoyed about this, but almost cost the movie some points. This movie has mastered the art of deception. All right, let me tell you what I mean by that. This movie had you believe one thing, and then other things occurred, and so now you don't know what to believe. And then it goes back to this, and then it goes back to that, and it keeps taking you and spinning you around. And I guarantee you that the dad, the cop, the father in this movie, he was slowly losing his mind. And I could feel that. I could understand why he was losing his mind, because the movie had so many twists and turns that it started to, it could hurt your head. It could really hurt your head. And that almost cost the movie. It almost got annoying. But then the ending was worth it all. The ending, the twist, the thing you didn't see coming. It reminds me of the movie Witch, where you pretty much think you know what's going on by a certain point, but then you truly don't know what's going on until the end of the movie. You still don't know. Even though you think you have it down pat, you think you have this this in the bag, but you just don't know, right? And I loved that part of the movie. That the end, it saved everything. The end really saved a lot of things in this movie. Okay, I have to be completely honest. Okay. Now let's get into the negatives. And for the negatives, it's kind of like one big yarn ball of negative. It's all wrapped into one big ball for me. Because, first of all, there were scenes in there that really didn't need to be in the movie. Okay? So it felt like filler. As for what you would do for an anime, it felt like filler in here. There was like drawn out, dragged out scenes. Okay? That kind of went on and on and on. And it could have been thrown to the cutting room floor. The cutting room floor could have got those scenes, okay? You didn't have to add those. You really didn't. So that kind of dragged the movie out longer than it needed to be. So that was one of my first negatives. A second negative, like I mentioned earlier, this movie went back and forth with certain points in the movie, certain situations that happened or places that the laws visited. They kept going back to specific crime scenes, and it got tiresome. Like what are we doing? Why are we going right back here? I understand they're doing investigative work. All right, so maybe you might have to go right back. But it just felt like they didn't know what to do with the time in the movie they had left. So they just wasted time. Like they were just wasting time. And that's before I knew what was going on. But so it was really hard to get through some of that. All right. Some of this repetitive scenes that took place. They were very repetitive. And, once again, it was driving me crazy the whole time. It drove me crazy. I almost fell asleep. I honestly fell asleep at one point because my attention couldn't be held up any longer for some scenes. And I hate that for the movie, but I couldn't help it. I could not help it. They needed to move on with some things. All right? They needed to really move on. Another thing that was thrown into this ball of negativity. Let me mention right now, this movie is 2 hours and some odd minutes long. So you can imagine with all the things I just mentioned for the negativity or the negative part, that's a lot to sit through. That is a lot of movie to sit through. A lot of ongoing things we've seen in the movie already before. Especially when they make you think that you've got it down. You know what's happening. You know what's going on. And then, hold up, but wait, something else. There's something else going on. But it seems like it's not worth it because you still don't understand where this movie is going. And when you make it 2 hours and some odd minutes, that's really brutal. That's extremely brutal for the audience. It really is. It really is. But then again, I guess it doesn't matter because it's getting a hell yeah. The ending saved it all. The ending was its safety blanket. It was the safety net that caught the movie when you thought it was going to fall through the ground. Okay? And I wish I so wish I could reveal that ending, but I can't, because there's some people who have never seen the movie before and they need to see it. All right, it's worth it. You really have to have the patience to get through it. That's all I ask of you. Have some patience, but it really is, worth it in the end. All right, press that like button, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I'm gone.